We are certainly very excited to have you for today's discussion about the Salesforce Winter 25 major release. Before we dive in, just wanted to cover a quick housekeeping items to make sure that you have the best possible experience today. First, we encourage everyone to participate, so feel free to share your thoughts and comments throughout the session using our chat feature. And we have a dedicated Q&A feature available for you to ask questions throughout the webinar. You'll see a Q&A icon on your screen. Simply type your question in there at any time during the presentation. We'll be keeping an eye on those and we'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A portion at the end of our webinar. If your question is more specific or urgent, feel free to use the chat. But for questions directed at our speakers, the Q&A box is the best place to ensure that we won't miss it. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll send the replay and any relevant resources directly to your inbox shortly after the event. So don't worry if you have to step away, you will not miss anything. So sit back, relax, and let's dig into the features of this release. First of all, I'm going to do a team introduction in a second. Then we will get into the Winter 25 release overview. We'll go through some critical updates, go through the exciting new features. We have prepared then a demo showcase for you, and then we will conclude with a Q&A session. So without further ado, first and foremost, I'm Courtney Maxwell. I am the Client Engagement Manager here with Sikich, and we'll be working with all of our clients that we have had and that we do other lines of business with. We also have our director, Justin Davis, with Salesforce, Chris Missonius, who is an account executive and a Salesforce subject matter expert. He will be working with new clients. We have Dustin Riddies, who is our senior solutions architect, who can build and create almost anything for us. And then finally, we have Adele Stager-Hughes, and she is our senior solution consultant and works with our clients and works on a lot of projects, and a treasure. Everybody who works with her loves her and feels like she is our greatest resource. So moving on, just a little bit about Sikich. 1,900 employees. We have a global presence we are very proud of. We have been working with Salesforce since 2007, so quite a great relationship. And we are working this year. We have a focus within the Analytics Cloud, the Commerce Cloud, Data Cloud, Experience Cloud, Field Service Lighting, the Financial Services Cloud, Manufacturing. And if you can see in this box right here, these are all of the different industries that we are specializing in. So have products that can meet all of these different industry needs, and we are really excited to share our solutions with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my teammate for the Winter 25 release overview. Adele?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney. Go ahead and go to that next slide if you could for me. So we have a few things that is for the overview. So this is just like big topics that the release is hitting, right? So as always in the tech field right now, AI is a hot topic and Salesforce is no different. So they're continuing adding more features with AI, including in core and in other just new features. So how Salesforce differentiates themselves on the AI front compared to other products is going to be with their trust layer, as they call it. So they are saying that their AI is safer than others, so that trust layer, they're adding new features as part of this release with that AI. A lot of these features are added add-on products they have to pay for. Also in this release is a ton of changes or new features for Salesforce Flow and automation. So that's with Flow Builder, the orchestration, which is like the organization of your flows as they run, and the integrations. They continually adding, they're doing that clicks, not code. So you should be able to do almost everything you can do with code, you can do with Flow now, and they are continuing adding those automation capabilities so you can do that kind of thing. Also coming out is a ton of security, identity, and privacy improvements. So there's some new security standards, improved encryption for Data Cloud, and changes to Salesforce Authenticator. They not going to necessarily change a whole bunch, but they're just improving in that. We'll go through later with some of the security changes, specifically what's coming through. But also going through just ease of use. So they're always about adding efficiency, decreasing clicks for people who are using Salesforce, regular users, and especially in this release, admins. So they're always just trying to increase your productivity, make sure people are using Salesforce and able to have the best user experience possible. So that is a little bit just of an overview of the release as a whole. So with that, we'll go ahead and go in to Dustin with some critical updates.
All right, thanks, Adele. So before we get into some of the features coming with this new release, we want to go over a few critical updates that it's important for you to be aware of so that your users aren't impacted when this release goes in. So the first of these is a new setup domain for the Salesforce setup screens. So if your organization blocks outbound traffic from your networks, has to pre-authorize which websites users can get to, maybe you're using trusted zones, virtual machines that are locked down, this could impact you. So with this change, and in compliance with browser changes related to third-party cookies and tracking, the Salesforce setup screens will move to a new domain, the salesforcesetup.com. You can see in that last bullet there. So you'll start to notice this in sandboxes first. When you're viewing any of those setup screens, you'll see that in the URL. If you can still get to that, then you know that you're good, your network's okay. If those are blocked on any of your zones, then you'll want to make sure that you open up your whitelist to allow this domain before the release goes in. And then the next item changing is a no reply requirement for outbound emails. So if your organization uses either automated emails that you generate from flows or processes and send those out, or if your users are sending emails from the system, it will be a requirement that a no reply email address is set up in through Salesforce Setup. So similar to an organization-wide email address configuration, if you use any of those today, like a sales@mycompany.com, some generic that your users are allowed to use, the process is similar. So on the next slide, we've got a picture of that screen. If you've set up those org-wide addresses before, this will be familiar. And then the process is similar there. If you don't set this no reply up before the release goes out, then your outbound emails may start to fail. And here's a picture of that setup screen where you'll do that configuration for the no reply address. Okay. And then the next big thing that's changing is related to the SFDX toolset. So this product, it's managed outside of the regular Salesforce releases. They actually do weekly releases. So it's a good idea to keep current with those release notes and make sure that you're keeping up with what's changing. Specifically with the November 6th release, there's going to be removal of some legacy commands related to deployments and scratch org management. So it's a great time to go review those notes, review your DevOps processes, developer tools, and make sure that you've updated to use the new versions of these commands, or your pipelines will start to fail, your deployments won't go out, starting with that November 6th release. Okay, and just a couple more here that are looking a little bit further in the future. In the Spring 25 release, there are going to be some under the hood changes that Salesforce is going to roll out related to SSO integration. So if you use services like Duo or Okta for logging into Salesforce, ahead of the Spring 25 release, it'll be important to go test these integrations in a sandbox, make sure that everything still functions like it should. They don't expect any issues will come out of this release. Again, it's under the hood for security, but it's a good idea to test those out. And then lastly, we have deprecation of older APIs. So along with Salesforce's deprecation policy, these versions, API 30 came out in spring of 2013. So what we're really talking about here are really old tools, really old integrations. If you have been using Salesforce for a long time, it's a good idea to review your connections, make sure that all of your services are using newer versions of the API so that those don't start to fail. Right. So I know a lot of this was pretty technical. We'll have some contact information at the end of the presentation. We are here to help, assess if any of these may impact your organization. So feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll give it back to Adele for some new features.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. Perfect. So we'll get into some exciting new features that are actually coming through. This first one is a lot of these are related to security in general, but this one is specifically the access summaries for users. So that view summary button in that first slide, first section here, was actually already included. So it's not a new button, but what you can do with it is new. So that view summary button, what happens is it's on the user level, particular to a certain user. So in this case, we're looking at my particular user. You hit that view summary button and it pops up this user access summary. This will allow you to see every permission that this user has. So in this case, you can see user permissions, object permissions, fields, and the rest of them here. The new feature that is actually coming is on that in that second box, you can see at the end, if you hit that drop down, you can do access granted by. So while it's nice that we could previously in the last release be able to see all the permissions that they have, now when we do that access granted by, we're able to see why does that user have that permission. So in this case, we're looking at my assigned permission sets permission. If I do that access granted by, what gives me that permission? Is it my profile? Is it a permission set that I have? Is it a permission set group that I've been given to? What exactly about that? So this is really helpful when diagnosing issues. Like let's say you have a field or something that one user can see and one user can't see. What you can do is go to this view summary for the user that can see it, either go to the specific field or the specific permission that you're trying to look at this, and it'll tell you exactly what gives that user that permission. If it's their profile, maybe you need to adjust the other user's profile to match. If it's a permission set, maybe you need to give that other user a permission set. So it's super handy. You can do it for all the permissions that are in there, see exactly what gives that user that permission. So that is that one. We'll go ahead to this next one. So there's also been changes to public groups. So you can actually add members to public groups differently as well. So it all is around that view summary button as well. So you can hit that same button, the view summary button, from the public group page as well. And it's actually dual purpose for the public group. So at the top, when you hit that view summary button for the public group, at the top, you're going to see that same information about this public group. Where are they used, what permissions they have. And that's going to be more in terms of like what list views do they have access to, what report and dashboard folders they have access to, and what sharing rules are they involved in. So those are the kind of things you're going to see. If you scroll down, you'll actually see with this picture here, which is the public group membership. So usually in a public group, you create the group and as part of that first screen, you select who is in it. You no longer have to do that. You can hit that view summary button, scroll down here, and there's this improved UI where you can go ahead and add users. There's that add member button. You can, it's just, you see a lot more about the users instead of just their name or things like that. You can see this improved UI for it. Along with this, they also added a description field to public groups, which is kind of crazy that they didn't already have that. But it is now added that you can have the public group name and the description, so that's nice. So similarly with the view summary buttons, it's not quite a view summary button on the object level, but it's a similar purpose. So in the object manager, if you're on that second tab in setup, there's the object manager, you select a certain object, gets you to your normal screen where you can see all the different tabs on there. You can see kind of details, fields, and relationships. Go all the way to the bottom now, there is object access. So this tab is the new tab. And it is doing a similar feature, right? So you can look at this tab and see exactly who has access. It's built in between permission sets, permission set groups, and profiles. So we kind of look at this line here. The second line there is my read-only profile. So kind of descriptive of what it's supposed to do, right? So people who have that profile, they should only have read access to this object. I can go ahead and make sure that that is the case at a glance by going to the account object, do the object access, go into this profile, and I can just go across that read only. Yep, they have read permission. They don't have create, edit, delete, anything like that. So it's just able to kind of see at a glance. Previously, you could still do this thing, but you wouldn't be able to do it at a glance, right? You'd have to go to the profile page, click into the profile, click into the object, scroll down, make sure that they can see what permissions they have. So it would be a more manual process. All of this is just to make it easier for an average user, average admin to see those things at a glance. So this is available on all objects, custom and standard objects. And another thing to note about all of these changes coming here is that they are related. They're all asked for on the ID exchange. So people have been requesting these features. Salesforce listens to those and then delivers upon these. So this object level one, the user one, and the public group one, they were all requested. I'm gonna hand it back to Dustin to finish up some of these newer items here.
All right. So in case you missed it, with Winter 24, Salesforce rolled out a new feature to really help admins when they're creating sandboxes, refreshing sandboxes, and that's the ability to use a public group and set up users in that public group. When you do the refresh, you select that group, and then those users are auto-activated in the sandbox environment when it's ready. So this saves a lot of time without having to remove the .invalid from user email addresses, do resets. We love this feature. The change coming for Winter 25 is that this will be required to be set up for developer and developer pro sandboxes. So your fulls and your partials, those won't be required, but you will need to set up a developer group and then use that when creating the dev or the dev pro box. Simple process. You can use the tool that Adele just showed to manage your public group. Once that sandbox is ready, you can still add users to that environment like you do today. So say you have users that don't have production access, they only get access to your sandboxes. Once the environment's ready, you can still create those, but you will have to name at least one person in that refresh group. And then the next new feature is for our developers, specifically around Lightning Web Component development. So traditionally, when you're developing LWC, you have to write your code, you have to deploy your code to Salesforce, you have to go to the browser, refresh the page, look at your changes, then go back, change your code, deploy. It's a really inefficient cycle sometimes, especially when you're dealing with like small styling changes and little tweaks. With this new feature that will be in beta, you'll be able to see your changes locally, live, in real time, without having to deploy your code and view. So this will really help that development workflow. Super excited about this one. So with that, I'll give it back to Adele, and she's going to show us a demo of some exciting changes with the Lightning App Builder.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, perfect. So I am in our demo environment here, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at one of our contacts that we have. So this is the new feature that we're kind of highlighting. It is called the Highlights panel. So this is a replacement, or not replacement, but improvement upon like the current highlight panel and the compact layout. So it looks similar. If we were to maybe compare it, I still have the other one on the account. So like this is the traditional highlights panel. It looks pretty similar. If I go back to my contact here, we can see that I can put a few more fields in here. I can fit a total of 12 fields here, including the primary field, which is the name in this case. But the nice part about this is that I can do the visibility rules and things like that. So I'm also going to show here dynamic forms. Dynamic forms have been out for the past couple releases, so it's not necessarily a new feature with this release, but not too many people are taking advantage of it until now, so I kind of showed that a little bit as well. So with this, we'll just go ahead and show some functionality here. I have the fax field up here, but because this contact doesn't have a fax number, I don't have it showing necessarily. So if I scroll down to my page here, go to my fax field and add a fax number, and then hit save, it will go ahead and make that change. So I now have a fax number. If I scroll back up to our highlights panel here, we can then see that fax number. If I go back down and remove it, we can see it's here at the end. Go back down to the remove it. it will disappear again. So I go ahead and hit save. So that is just, now it's gone. It isn't there anymore. So that's one of the like normal things, and that is part of dynamic forms as well. So for example, I have this assistant field. If I go ahead and start typing in here, like let's say I have a assistant called Brittany Snow. If I click out of that, we have this assistant phone field. This assistant phone field was always here, but it didn't show up because I didn't have an assistant. If I don't have an assistant, I don't need an assistant phone, so it was hidden. So I go ahead and just put a phone number in here, and then I can go ahead and hit save. And the nice part about that is it will update automatically. So like if I went ahead and removed that, the field is no longer available. If I put it back, there it pops in. It's not as I'm typing. I do have to like click out for that change to be made, but it is before I hit save. So that is nice in that regard. So I'm going to go a little bit behind the scenes and kind of show you how easy it is to make those kind of changes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my setup cog here and do this edit page. So your admins would have this availability to get to this page. This is called the Lightning App Builder. So this is where you're going to make any of these changes. So Lightning App Builder is where you go ahead and make these changes for the dynamic forms in the highlights panel. Previously, if you were going to make these kind of changes, you would use page layouts, which you can definitely still do. You can definitely still have your fields, things like that. These dynamic forms, dynamic highlight panel, all these kind of things is just to add additional functionality for that. So and all of these things are only available in Lightning. So if you are in your org are still in Classic, first step is going to be transition to Lightning, and then you can take advantage of some of these newer features. So with this, I'll go ahead and show you. We have our dynamic highlights panel here. So when you were looking at this app builder page, these are going to be like different components that you can add to the page. So for example, we have different pass or list view things over here, and it's drag and drop. So if I wanted to pull these on the page, we already have activities on here, but if I want to go ahead and drag here, drag it, add activities, that's just kind of how that works here. So this dynamics highlights panel is under the second tab here. We have components. It is under fields. So if I go ahead and hit fields, if you're using dynamic forms, you're going to want to pull a field section over. So that's what this is right here, is a field section where you can go ahead and add these fields. And then this dynamic highlights panel is this right here. So I just drag and drop that over and it creates this. As part of this, you want to have a primary field. And in most cases, if not all cases, it will be the name of the record, most likely whatever is the clickable thing that you have on that. So in this case, I'm looking at a contact, so it's going to be the contact name. If I'm on the account level, it'll probably be the account name. If you have a custom object that you like have an auto number for, maybe it's not the auto number, maybe it's like a description field or something. But in most cases, I think it's going to be the name. And then you have the action toolbar here. So this action is pretty similar to dynamic actions if you're familiar with that. If not, what you do is you just add the actions that you want. So I have edit, clone, and delete here. If I wanted to add an action, I would go ahead and do this. It'll show me all the actions available for this record. So in this case, if I wanted to go ahead and add change owner in here, I could do that and hit done. You still have to create these actions in the object manager, but you just add it to this particular page using this function. Now that I have done that, I can go ahead and add any fields here. So you can kind of see on this fields tab, we have these components. It tells us what is required in terms of fields in general. And then it has a list of all the fields that are on the object. So it's just drag and drop. I've already pulled some of these over here, but like, for example, if I didn't have birth date, I could remove from here. I go back here, find birth date. Here it is, and I'm just going to drag that over. Let's maybe put that at the end this time. So now I have all my fields. So that is how easy it is to add fields on here. Previously, if you're going to add fields to the highlights panel, you'd have to go to the object manager, go to your compact layout, and then choose your fields that you want displayed. So now you can do here. And down in the dynamic forms, it is the same way. So this is the field section component. I can go ahead and drag and drop fields from this list into this, and I have it. And if I wanted to maybe reorder here, so like maybe reports to actually needs to be higher, so I'll pull that up. Mobile phone, that's fine. Let's maybe put direct phone before phone. So you can just drag and drop that way. You can also delete things with this little trash can icon at the end. But as we're going through here, you can see that some of them, the two that I kind of pointed out earlier, have this little orange icon. those are the ones that I have visibility rules on. So when I click on them, before I do that, if I click on title, we can see there's no of the orange. It has this section where I can add filters. You can also control whether it's read-only or required on this page, but this visibility section is what I'm talking about. So if I click on title, there's no visibility rules, so this section is blank. If I go ahead and click on assistant phone, it is not blank. So we can see we have a filter. In this case, what this is saying, and I'll click into here so we can see more details, that if the assistant field is not equal to blank, show this field. If it is equal to blank, it's not going to show it. So that is how you can kind of set those up in this case. So this field is dependent on this field is what that is saying. If we go up to this facts here, it works similarly where it has facts is not equal to null or into blank. So in this case, I have it dependent on facts. I would only recommend doing that in this top section anyway, because you're not going to edit the fields in this top section, right? These are just highlights you can quickly at a glance. The most important information that you need to see about this record is in that top section. You're not ever going to be editing here because if I need this to show up, instead of editing it in the top, I'll actually edit it down at the bottom where it exists on the page, right? So in this case, I can have a field dependent on itself because it's in the top. You would not do the same thing in these field sections because if it doesn't show up, people are not going to be able to add it to then make it show up, right? So that is how that works. With this, you can actually get pretty in depth on what you wanted to see. So let's say that this direct phone, actually we'll do this phone. This direct phone, let's say only certain people it's really important for certain people. Like the salespeople, it's really important that they right away see this phone number because they're going to want to see it. They want to go ahead and see it. So it's not necessarily that the other people can't see it because it's still going to be on the page here. It's not necessarily the most important field for those other people. So we can go ahead and add that. It's pretty interesting how in depth you can get with these filters. So any field that exists on this record, we can go ahead and add. So if this being visible was dependent on another field, kind of like we previously had, I could do that. We can also make this field dependent on different devices. So like if it's really important when someone's on their mobile device that they see this phone number, we could say that this phone number shows up when they're viewing the highlights panel on their mobile device, but it doesn't necessarily show up in the highlights when you're on your desktop. Another thing to note while I'm kind of on that form factor topic is these dynamic highlights panel and dynamic forms, it does have to be enabled for mobile. So if you do have quite a few of your users who are using the mobile device, it's just a quick setting, just go to setup and turn it on, but it does have to be enabled. So that once you create these pages with these, they'll be visible for your people on mobile. But once you enable it, you should be good to go. And then if it's not based on the device, you can do this advanced one. And on this advanced one, you can actually choose the user. So this would be like the user who's viewing the page. So the user viewing the page, if I go ahead and maybe do it based off of their profile, and we'll do the profile's name. So let's say done here. So if we say that the profile name contains sales, and then go ahead and hit done. That would mean for any sales users, this would go ahead and be visible, but in this top section. But if maybe it was a support user, they're not necessarily going to see it right away in the top section. It's not the same as field level security again, because a support user would still be able to see it down here in this section. It's just in the highlights panel. They wouldn't be able to see it. So that is very cool. In this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and instead of doing it based off of that, I'm going to do it based off itself again. So we can do phone not equal to blank. So I'm just not going to type in that other field, hit done there, and then go ahead and hit save. So with this, the main way to tell that the changes have been saved is going to be that this little changes saved icon pops up. So it has popped up. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. And then we can make sure that that is working. Right now, they have a phone number. It is showing up. If I go ahead and edit this field, remove that phone number, and hit save, you can see right away it is already gone. And I didn't even have to hit save. If I do hit save, it'll also still be gone. Let me go ahead and pop that back in here. Hit save there, and you see it popped in right away again. So that is pretty handy. So the highlights panel, dynamic forms, they both kind of work the same way in that regards. One other newer thing that has come out is dynamic related lists. So we're all familiar with our related lists here that show up on this page. So these are just how, in this case, a contact is related to other objects in the org, right? So this contact is associated with these opportunities. You can do it the same way with dynamic related lists, but you can control it a little bit more. And this is all just kind of in the vein that Salesforce is moving away from page layouts and more towards dynamic, or these lightning pages. And that is just because you can do more with these. You can do the visibility. Previously, if you wanted certain fields to be available for certain users and not available for other users, you would have to create 2 different page layouts. But now that you have 2 different page layouts, you have to maintain those every time you create a new field or you make changes. Instead of doing it, having multiple pages, now you can have one lightning page that is assigned to all your users, but your visibility is controlled on this page. So it's just a little bit of a change in how people it's planned to do it. So you can definitely continue to do page layouts if that's what you like to do, but these improvements are coming through, so we want to have people take advantage of it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a related list here for opportunities. And this standard related list and this related list right now are exactly the same. This one's just the list version. If I change this to tile, it would show the same information even like in that same way. I just like list. I think it looks a little cleaner. We could change this one to a list if we wanted to make it look the same. But on this, we can actually change the label. So let's say this list, actually, we only want to show open opportunities. So in this case, we have open opportunities. I can change that label. It'll change that label up here. And then I can add fields as needed. Again, previously, this related list would be controlled on the page layout. Instead, now I can go ahead and add any fields that I want. So maybe I want to go ahead and pull next step into here. And then maybe we can do like last activity date, because that's always super helpful for people to know. So I went ahead and added a few fields. It pulls in there. I can also change the sort order if I want to do it. I can add any filters. So like if I only wanted to show, this is supposed to be open opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and find the closed checkbox. And I only want to show where the closed checkbox equals false, because if it's closed won, closed lost, passed, that would be where that checkbox is true and it wouldn't show up in this list. I'm going to go ahead and done. So now that filter has been added, I can again do that same filter stuff so that we did previously on the fax and phone number. You can still do on this related list. So like if this open opportunities list is only helpful for your salespeople, go ahead and pop that in that filter, and the other people, they'll still see all the opportunities under this one. So that is super helpful in that regard. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save and do that here. Let's see here. We're just waiting for that change is saved. And sometimes it just feels like it takes a little bit of time and then it fades away. So you can't remember you have to hit save again. But let's go ahead and hit this back arrow now to go back to the page. And in this case, it's not going to matter too much because I think I only have one opportunity in here, and I do only have one, and it's open. So we'd pull that. But if I go ahead and pull this, let's say I go ahead and put that as closed one, maybe. Hit save there. Now I have a closed one opportunity. Let's maybe go back to Janet here, go back to that related list. And if I refresh this here, now we have all of our opportunities, but our open opportunities list is blank. So that is just kind of how that works. You would not have been able to do the filtering for specific opportunities with this standard related list. It just wouldn't have worked. So that is the capabilities that dynamic related lists will give you. And again, this is not a new feature to this release, but it was a past couple ones. The newest feature with this release is this highlights panel here on there. So that is super nice. And what we wanted to show you here today, so let me go ahead and pull this back to the slideshow here. So Justin, I think you've been monitoring the chat. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. So if
Awesome.
you do have any questions from the session today, just go ahead and click the Q&A area, and then you can drop in any questions. This first one here, Adele, I'll let you field this first one. This first one's asking about the features from Dreamforce, when and how they're going to be coming to play, for the releases.
Yeah, so for those users who don't know, Dreamforce is Salesforce's big conference. They have it once a year. It was just 2 weeks ago, I believe. So they announced a whole host of things, including Agentforce and things like that, which if you want more information about that, let us know. We can do another webinar. But we can go into those. So some of those features, they were released at that time. Like a lot of things, they launch while they're at Dreamforce. They just make available right away. A lot of those are the ones you have to pay for, so you pay for them and then they're automatically live. Crazy how that works sometimes. Other features they mention and then they won't actually be available until future releases. So usually the winter release is just a tad too close to Dreamforce for some of those features to be live right away. So they're usually planned for like the spring and summer releases. An example would be last year at Dreamforce, people were requesting like the 5 integration licenses, saying that would be a great thing. The people at Dreamforce were like, yeah, let's do that. We'll totally do that. And then they made it available the next spring release. So that was available in this year of the spring release. So it depends on the specific feature that we're thinking about, but a lot of them either are live now or they will be live upcoming. So, yep.
Great, thanks, Adele. And then Dustin, once you field this one, so with the Salesforce setup, how will our clients know, if they're going to be blocked by the new change?
Sure. So this change can be tested in a sandbox environment ahead of the release. Generally, if you can get to any sites on the internet, then you'll be fine with the change. But it is available in the sandbox early, so you can go log into Salesforce Sandbox where this release has already been deployed, and then try to navigate through those setup screens. If you can see the Salesforce-setup domain in the URL, then you know that you're good.
All right, well great. Thanks, Dustin. A few more questions in here. Again, if you do have any questions for our team here, just put them in the Q&A. So this next one here is about permissions and dynamic forms. So are permissions going to be different for dynamic forms versus the page layouts? Like, how are they different?
So they're not, so the Lightning pages versus the page layouts, they are both controlled by profiles. So when you're working with page layouts, they are you do the page layout assignment tab when you're looking at page layouts, and you assign those based off of record type and profile. Similarity you can do on the Lightning pages by the record type and profile. They actually go a level deeper because you can assign it based off the app you're in, the record type you're on, and the profile. So if you have like a service app and a sales app, and you have your service users looking at the contact on in the service app, that page could be different than the service people looking at the contact in the sales app. So you can go like a level deeper, but it is still on the basis controlled by the user's profile when they see that.
All right, well, that's helpful. And then this question here, Dustin, why don't you take this one? So this one's talking about VS Code, and do you have to actually have VS Code to use that Lightning local dev feature?
You don't. So the Lightning dev feature is through the Salesforce CLI, so you will have to have that installed. You'll still need an IDE to do your development changes, but then you run the local dev through the command line. So it's agnostic to which IDE you prefer to use. Salesforce still recommends VS Code. That's the one they promote and that they've built into their dev tools. But if you have like an IntelliJ or any other tool, you can still use that and still use the CLI for local dev.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Dustin. That looks like all the questions we had in the Q&A. If there's any others, go ahead and you can chat them in there now. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Chris.
Okay, well, that concludes our Salesforce Winter 2025 release webinar. If you're an existing Sikich customer using Salesforce, you can reach out to Courtney Maxwell, who's our client engagement manager. If you're new to Sikich and you use Salesforce, or you're interested in Salesforce, you can reach out to me, Chris Masonis. Or if you want to find out a little more information about our Salesforce practice, you can click on the QR code on the screen right now, and it'll give you a little more information about our Salesforce expertise. And that concludes our webinar. So thank you again for attending, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you.